Micro Four Thirds users aren't exactly drowning in zoom lens options, but the Olympus 12-40mm has some compelling competition, so let's see how it stacks up. This video is brought to you by the Brave browser. Brave is an open source project built from the ground up around privacy and performance. Plus, you can use Brave payments to support your favorite creators, and only the creators you want to support. Check the description for a link with more information. Before we get into this, I want to clarify that we will be comparing the Olympus lens to Panasonic's similarly spec'd and priced 12-35mm. However, I don't own a 12-35mm, so the comparisons will be more spec-based than experience-based. In addition, this review isn't going to go into heavily technical details of how the lens performs optically. Instead, we're going to talk about general features and just day-to-day usability of the lens. First off, I think it's important to talk about why I chose the Olympus 12-40mm. For about the same price, I could have gotten the 12-35mm, which would have given me optical image stabilization, something very useful on my non-stabilized Lumix G7. And primarily what the choice came down to was two things: build and reach. Beginning with the build, the Olympus 12-40mm is an almost entirely metal construction, which makes it quite durable, although quite heavy as well. In addition, the lens has weather sealing, which protects it from dust splashes and freezing. On the other hand, the Lumix 12-35 is mostly plastic construction. That does make it considerably lighter by about 80 grams, but it also means the lens is less durable, especially since it doesn't have any kind of weather sealing either. A lot of the shooting I do, especially when I bought the lens, is in the outdoors. If it starts raining while I'm in the backcountry, I can't just go inside with my camera. It has to be able to handle the elements to a certain extent. The metal construction and weather sealing was very important to me. Of course, another nice bonus is that the lens has a slightly longer reach. Comparing full frame equivalents, the Lumix lens maxes out at 70mm, while the Olympus goes up to 80. That reach is actually really useful for certain shots, and I utilize the full range of the lens quite frequently. Another neat feature of the Olympus over the Lumix, although slightly less useful for a lot of people, is the minimum focusing distance that's about 5 centimeters closer. So what advantages does Lumix offer for their lens choice? The biggest ones I mentioned already: smaller size, lighter weight, and optical image stabilization. Outside of those points, the lenses are pretty much identical in terms of specs, although OIS is a very big difference between the two. I'll get more into that later on. Backing up to the design of the Olympus lens, it works very well. As I mentioned, the lens is quite large and hefty compared to most Micro Four Thirds lenses, but it's not unwieldy, and it's still very light compared to APS-C or full frame zooms. The main body of the lens has two rings, one for the focal length and the other for focus. There's also a function button, but as far as I can tell, it only works with Olympus cameras, so I haven't made use of it at all. One really neat feature of the lens is that the entire focus ring is a switch. When pulled down, the focus ring converts to manual focus, even if the camera is set on autofocus. That was incredibly annoying when I accidentally flipped it for the first time and thought my lens's autofocus was broken, but now it's pretty neat. Due to latency and accuracy problems, I absolutely hate focus by wire. Using the manual switch on the lens converts it to a fully mechanical focus mode and also gives you reference points for focusing, which is absolutely fantastic. Even better, the autofocus on this lens is fantastic as well. It's incredibly fast, even in low light, and the autofocus motor is basically silent. However, all that said, I think it's really important to talk about optical image stabilization. If you look at some of the videos I've done recently, they haven't been especially smooth. Probably the most egregious example was my Christmas video, which was shot entirely handheld on my 12-40mm. The Lumix G7 doesn't have in-body stabilization, and having a lens that doesn't have stabilization either means I have to depend on a rig or warp stabilizer to get smooth shots handheld. That isn't the end of the world, but for run and gun shooting, it really can have a negative effect. If it's any consolation to myself, Panasonic has adopted in-body OIS with most of their new Lumix cameras, so it's almost certain that my next camera upgrade will have OIS, and the lack of it on my Olympus lens won't matter so much. So that brings us to conclusion time. Both the Olympus 12-40mm and the Lumix 12-35mm are fantastic lenses, and it's hard to go wrong with either choice. That said, for the average filmmaker or photographer, I tend to lean towards recommending the 12-35mm. The optical image stabilization is genuinely a big deal for almost all camera users. The only reason I'd pick the Olympus over the Lumix is if you need the extra reach of the lens, you have a camera with in-body stabilization, or like me, you need a weather-sealed lens. Anyway, that is it for this video. If you liked this video, if it helped you decide whether or not you want to pick up an Olympus 12-40mm, a Lumix 12-35mm, or maybe even another lens, hit that like button. If not, feel free to hit the dislike button. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those down in the comment section down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button.